History has a habit of calling people explorers when what they really mean is opportunistic, heavily armed globehoppers with a moral compass that point directly to the nearest pile of gold. And few wore that title quite like Sir Francis Drake, England's favorite pirate, slave trader, part-time naval commander, and full-time thorn in the side of the Spanish Empire. Strap in because this guy circumnavigated the globe, looted everything that wasn't nailed down, became a knight for it, and somehow still died of dysentery. But before we dive into the gloriously chaotic life of Francis Steals Everything Drake, we need to set the stage, because 16th century Europe wasn't just a backdrop. So, quick recap. England is Protestant, Spain is Catholic. And not just go to church on Sundays Catholic. We are talking full-on Inquisition, fire and brimstone, let's torture you for Jesus Catholic. Ever since Henry VIII ghosted the Pope and married literally everyone else, England had been the rebellious teenager of Europe. Enter Philip II of Spain, devout Catholic, king of half the known world thanks to the recent colonizations, and the kind of guy who thought burning heretics was a totally normal weekend activity. And then there's Queen Elizabeth I, a Protestant queen ruling a broke, stormy island full of pirates, playwrights, and unresolved daddy issues. The two monarchs weren't officially at war yet, but let's just say they were aggressively at peace. Spain was busy hoarding silver from the Americas, and England, too broke to build a proper navy, started outsourcing its foreign policy to privateers like Drake. So while Europe was busy deciding whether Jesus preferred Latin or not, England and Spain were eyeing each other across the channel like two rival chess players. Francis Drake was born around 1540 in Devon, which is basically the English countryside's way of preparing you for a life at sea by making land life boring enough to leave. Francis started his career as a humble sea apprentice, which sounds noble but translated into scrub the deck while your captain chases profit and or commits crimes. Francis would then go on to team up with his cousin, John Hawkins, who introduced Drake to a charming little venture called the transatlantic slave trade, where the business model was steal humans from Africa, sell them in the Americas, get paid, repeat. Hawking also had a thing for giving his ships names like Jesus of Lubeck, because nothing says moral authority like putting Jesus on the front of a slave ship, I guess. Obviously, this part of Francis's life was horrific, like morally bankrupt even by the 16th century standards. In 1568, Drake and Hawkins brought their totally legitimate business to the Spanish port of San Juan de Ula, where the Spanish were like, how about we just kill you? And things exploded into a naval disaster. Most of their fleet was destroyed, many English sailors died, and Drake barely escaped with his life, and more importantly, a lifelong vendetta against Spain. Fast forward to 1572. Drake was given a wink-wink nudge-nudge to go explore Panama. And by explore, they of course meant steal everything not guarded by God himself. And Francis, he did not disappoint. In a raid so audacious it might as well have been sponsored by Rockstar Games, he ambushes a Spanish treasure convoy using a wildly outnumbered crew and enough bravado to fuel a Fast and Furious sequel. Francis makes off with so much silver he probably could have bought half of London. Elizabeth, of course, pretended she had no idea what he was doing, but also mysteriously kept inviting him to royal banquets. See, Elizabeth never officially told Drake to loot Spanish colonies, but she also never told him not to, so you could say she kept him on a speed dial. In 1577, Queen Elizabeth was like, "Hey Francis, would you like to go be annoying to Spain?" Drake said, "Say less," and launched what historians now call the circumnavigation, and what Spain probably called, "Why won't this man stop?" Drake raided his way down the coast of South America, pillaged towns, hijacked treasure ships, and even executed one of his own officers for being a buzzkill. I guess nothing says command presence like surprise beheading your co-workers. Eventually, he became the first Englishman to reach modern California, which he promptly claimed for England and renamed Nova Albion, because if you write it in Latin, it's not theft. And he finished the loop back home like a bloody boomerang. England throws a party, and Drake gets knighted on the deck by Queen Elizabeth herself. So the moral of the story could be that if you rob Spain enough, you might as well level up into nobility. At this point, Philip II was furious. He saw Elizabeth's Protestant England and her pirate boyfriends as an affront to all that was holy. So he started building the Spanish Armada, the biggest fleet Europe had seen since Noah forgot the unicorns. The Spanish Armada was to invade England, dethrone Elizabeth, and yeet Protestantism into the sea. But before any of that, Drake decided to give Spain a little pre-war love tap by sailing straight into the port of Cadiz and lighting up about 30 ships, and casually delaying the armada by a year. This act of preemptive arson became known as singeing the King of Spain's beard. I love it when history is this metal. The Spanish Armada recovered and finally invaded England in 1588, and Drake, as Vice Admiral of the English fleet, helped lead a dazzling defense. Legend has it he delayed fighting because he insisted on finishing a game of bowls. Is that true? Who knows. Is it hilarious? Absolutely. The Armada was scattered and battered by storms, because if there's one thing England can count on, it's the weather being unreasonably aggressive. By now, Drake's fame and fortune were at their height. So, as we all know, it was his time to enter politics. He ran for parliament, got elected, and then as the mayor of Plymouth, did a whole lot of nothing. But being a political disaster didn't stop him from trying one last expedition in the Caribbean in the year 1595, a final expedition to rescue John Hawkins' son, who'd been captured by the Spanish. Unfortunately, before any daring rescues could unfold, Drake met his final boss, the toilet. He died of dysentery. So, what do we make of Francis Drake? On the one hand, naval genius, daring explorer, and the man who made England look cool for about 5 minutes. On the other hand, a pirate, slave trader, and walking war crime. So, until I find another man committing a state-sponsored piracy and somehow getting a knighthood out of it, stay curious. Thanks for watching, and until the next time.